With the abolition of the old status system, everybody became, in effect, unified by being a subject of the emperor. However, and this is a very big however, there was a new system of a new aristocracy was basically created. So the old status system was gone, but a kind of new status system was actually created. It was far more selective, however. There, basically, the emperor, the existing imperial family, the existing court aristocrats, and former daimyo, and many former high-placed samurai, certainly the leaders of the Meiji Restoration, these previously obscure samurai, many of them, were given noble status. They became noblemen. They were no longer samurai, but they were noblemen. And overall, the new nobility comprised a far, far, far smaller portion of the Japanese population then had the samurai class before them, but they were nevertheless presented to the public as the new elite of Japan. There were all sorts of ranks created based on European ranks. People were now dukes, barons, marquises, right? So if you had been the daimyo of, I don't know, someplace in Kyushu, you were now noble, you were now maybe a baron, but you were not a baron of the former place that you had ruled. And the Meiji government was very clear on this. They wanted to reward their supporters, and they wanted to ensure their loyalty, and one of the ways they tried to ensure the loyalty of this new elite was by cutting its ties with the old status system and with the old bases of their political power. So these new nobles were basically nobles without an ancestral seat, and they derived their status from proximity to the emperor and to the imperial government, to these Meiji oligarchs. So if the previous status system had been based on descent, had been based on notions of proper conduct for your class, this new status system was in some ways simplified. There were only two real classes, nobles and commoners, and then there were all sorts of subsets of nobles, but really your nobility was based on your proximity to the government, and that was really the only thing that was based on. So it was at the same time a nice way to reward your supporters, but also to maintain your imperial authority. And many upper level shizoku, once again many of the former samurai who were of daimyo rank or just below, they did just fine. Most of the other samurai became commoners, and many of them did fine too, but basically not far from all samurai made the jump to this new exalted group. Morals and lifestyles of the samurai were changing along with the morals and lifestyles of the rest of Japan, and a lot of this was due to the import of Western cultural influence, literature, theater, philosophy, travel to the West. Some Japanese studied in the West. Where I went to college, Oberlin College, the first Japanese woman to get a degree in the United States did so from Oberlin College. She was the wife of one of the top military leaders of Japan, Oyama Iwao. And in many ways, the engagement of certainly these new nobles, but also of other people who used to be of samurai rank with the West deepened greatly. Some of these new nobles gathered at what was called the Rokumeikan, which was a building built by one of the Meiji oligarchs, Inoue Kaoru, also of Choshu, where where these new Meiji leaders would get together and learn all sorts of Western manners and then enjoy consuming Western culture. Here, for example, dressing in Western clothes and dancing. Western musical instruments. Here you have some pianos. And what's remarkable is that women are dancing with men. This was new. This was an exciting time for many of these Meiji leaders, in part because they really took to some of this Western culture and their engagement with it was actually something that ran quite deep. For many Japanese, including many former samurai, a part of engaging with Western culture was through religion. Christianity was gradually, but was legalized. It turns out that in Kyushu there were some families who had maintained Christian traditions from the 1630s, had basically been these hidden Christians for hundreds of years. They're fascinating people, and many of their traditions were truly unique to them. But there were many new converts as well, and not only to Catholicism, certainly to Protestant sects as well, and to Russian Orthodoxy as well. It may surprise some of you to know that Russian Orthodoxy was a very popular form of Christianity in Japan, and today also maintains mostly a symbolic but a very important presence in northern Japan. This is the Hakodate Haristos Kyokai, basically the Church of Christ in Hakodate. It's the seat of the Russian Orthodox Church in Japan. Wait, no, it's not. That's St. Nikolai's in Tokyo. I'm sorry. But it's a very important church in the Russian Orthodox world, and certainly in Japan. Absolutely stunning. This kind of religious change was accompanied by and helped by basically priests doubling as language instructors. People wanted to learn English, French, Russian, and in many cases they learned it from missionaries and from priests. There was how do I say this? There were other changes in the religious world of Japan as well. Remember that system of temple registries, where people living in a certain village or a certain ward of a city had to register with a certain temple, and if they didn't, then they could get in trouble, and their descendants also had to be registered in with their ancestral temple, and it caused all sorts of historians to fall down in gratitude before the Tokugawa shogunate, but for many of the people who lived with the system, it was seen as a form of control. It was resented. And during the early Meiji period, during the very early Meiji period, there was a kind of a backlash against Buddhism. First of all, Buddhist and Shinto shrine and Shinto holy places were separated by decree. Remember how I said that mostly before 1868, you could find a Buddhist holy site and a Shinto holy site and vice versa. Well, the reason you can no longer do that by and large, with some exceptions, but by and large is because the Meiji government had a very dim view of the Buddhist establishment. They saw them as Tokugawa stooges, and they tolerated even a certain level of anti-Buddhist pogroms in the very early years of the Meiji period. Then they thought better about it and said, well, we really don't want people to be rioting for any reason, so we'll handle the Buddhists. And they put a stop to these pogroms and eventually reversed their persecution of Buddhism. But certainly Buddhism lost its position as the as the primary religious political nexus in Japan, and that role was then taken over by state Shinto. Shinto became ever more organized, ever more formalized. Really, from the Meiji period, you can start thinking about Shinto as a organized religion, and it was brought under the control of imperial authorities, and the supposed holy descent of the emperor was stressed more and more, repeatedly, and you underwent a slow transformation throughout the imperial period, that is to say from 1868 until 1945, when religious fervor was consciously turned up higher and higher by the central government, until you really do get people during the Second World War firmly convinced that the emperor is literally the descendant of a goddess, the chief traditional deity, Amaterasu Omikami, the sun goddess, and that he really was holy. And these religious developments really had their roots during this period and in the reaction of the Meiji oligarchs against Buddhist participation in government. Ironically, I should mention one of the things that strikes me as certainly ironic, but also just fascinating, is the fact that with the Meiji Restoration, you also get the, as I said, the introduction of Christianity to Japan, or the reintroduction of Christianity to Japan. Christianity is a very popular religion in Japan, and was so throughout the imperial period. Certainly by no means were a majority of Japanese Christians, but a sizable majority were, and some of these same people who volunteered for example, to be kamikaze pilots during the last stages of the war, and to die for the Holy Emperor, were practicing Christians. It's fascinating to read their diaries where they struggle to come to terms with these two conflicting religious identities, and still even Christians who believed that suicide was wrong, and that there was only one God. They were still very much affected by the religious policy of state Shinto, and that kind of policy was really part and parcel of modern Japanese state control, thought of by these Meiji oligarchs, who were really operating without a plan, who were trying this and that, seeing what worked, and constantly issuing edicts and countermanding them, in the fact that they could so profoundly affect people's private and religious lives, almost a century afterwards, really speaks to the ambition of these low-level samurai, these formerly low-level samurai, in reorganizing Japanese society itself.